This is a story I never expected to share. But I am here. Things can happen in life that you aren't prepared for. It left me in the midst of my kitchen, with my hands still resting on a sink piled high with dishes, gazing at a face I hadn't laid eyes on in years. Hello, Kevin. This reunion was anything from typical. His presence, even after all these years, sent a shockwave through my heart, causing it to reset its rhythm. He didn't seem like the Kevin I recalled at first. Years had passed since the young man had sought safety in our home, but now he was no longer here. Someone else stood there, more assured and self-assured. Yet those peepers. There was no change in those eyes. What had changed was the expressionless stare in those eyes. He said, "Hi, Mary," with a newfound confidence and a voice that was deeper and steadier than before. I realized right then and there that this wasn't your average visit, from that one word alone. In an effort to collect myself, I removed my hands from the sink and dried them after wiping away any excess water. No words would come out of my mouth. My tongue was thick. However, a warning light started flashing within me the moment our gazes met. Rather than trying to block it out, I became more engrossed in the experience. Eventually, with a more subdued tone than I had anticipated, I spoke up and called out to Kevin. Yet on the inside a tempest was brewing. "Wow, I didn't expect this." Then he grinned. The seemingly innocent smile conceals a hidden depth. I felt uneasy about something, but I couldn't quite identify it. He shrugged slightly and admitted that it had been unexpected. However, I insisted on being present, and Uncle Bob immediately agreed. Naturally, Bob. No matter how bad things got, Kevin remained his favorite. Bob had played the role of a father figure throughout his life. This wasn't, however, a mere business trip for me. Why? Because Kevin's eyes retained that expression. The expression I had hoped to erase from my mind, the expression I had fought so hard to turn a blind eye to. He said, "You're surprised to see me," maintaining eye contact the whole time. Is that so? Yes. That wasn't, however, the only thing about it. There was an electric charge in the air between us. It seemed to engulf the entire room. After all that time, I finally spoke out, filling the gap, to say that things had shifted a bit. My mind was humming with questions about the significance of his return, and my words failed to quiet them. I had an innate curiosity about it. Regarding the potential outcomes of this trip, it was far from a reassuring interest, though. As Kevin stood at my kitchen doorway, a subtle smile playing on his lips, I had an epiphany. There was purpose to those 3 years of radio silence. It wasn't your average drop-in. This marked the commencement. What type of beginning was it? I figured it out in just a few hours. Give my channel a subscribe and enable notifications, so you won't miss a thing before this story gets more weirder. It means the world to me when you show your support at the end of the narrative with comments and likes. I was in the kitchen getting dinner ready when it became nightfall. While my thoughts was elsewhere, my hands chopped veggies mechanically. Feelings and memories that I had thought I had long ago buried were reawakened by Kevin's unexpected return. My mind was always racing, and no amount of effort on my part could stop them. Just then, Kevin materialized in the kitchen doorway. He did nothing more than stand there, staring at me from behind the counter, glass in hand. He merely gazed without expression. Those peepers, too. I recognized them from when I was a kid. I mean, the ones that dragged me into murky conditions before. "Need some assistance, Mary?" His voice remained composed but had a little warmth as he inquired. I replied without raising my eyes to meet his, for I was afraid I might lose my temper if I did. "Nah, Kevin, I'm okay with everything." My heart rate increased as I perceived him drawing nearer. "Mary," he murmured with an accusatory undertone. "Your continued behavior astounds me." I leaned down to face him after placing the knife on the counter and taking a big breath. "We have already discussed this, Kevin. We haven't laid eyes on each other for the past 3 years because of this. In the past, what transpired? Indeed, it was thrilling. You were a child, though. That makes you 24 years old now. I thought we were done." I thought my expression said rebellion, but my voice showed the inner agony I was attempting to conceal. Kevin grinned, but it wasn't a harmless grin. Moving closer, he spoke to Mary, saying, "The older I got." His steps were slow and deliberate. The more I learned, I was unable to resist. "Are the things we did not recalled by you? Doesn't it thrill you completely?" I could feel my heart racing. I wanted to approach him head-on, but my expression betrayed me. His comments brought back those forbidden recollections of our past together. I begged Kevin, please, in a very impassioned voice. However, those recollections simultaneously frightened and fascinated me. Kevin continued unabated. He drew nearer further, leaning on the counter. He was now only an arm's length away from me. Did you really believe that removing me from the situation would cause me to forget? Just above a whisper, he whispered. It was unsuccessful, though. You will always be in my heart. All they did was get stronger. I was shaking uncontrollably. I wished I could retreat to take a step back. Except that I was unable to. Everything had been dominated by his presence and his enthusiasm. I murmured to Kevin, but he interrupted me. As our gazes met, he lamented that I should have been allowed to express my emotions at the time rather than rejected. Even though those events will always be with me, how could you possibly forget them? It was true what he said. Yes, I was still aware. Every forbidden moment, his touch, his murmured words, all of them were buried deep within my subconscious. All of them had surfaced again just now. I tried to back away, but my feet just wouldn't budge. My voice quivered as I expressed my disapproval, revealing the inner turmoil I was experiencing. With a lean, Kevin put a hand on the counter. Did it matter to you if my touch on you was appropriate or not? When did you first sense my presence? With a hushed but emotionally charged voice, he inquired. What I beheld in his eyes at that very instant was impossible to ignore. It wasn't merely his sentiments, they were also mine. I was hyperventilating and had trouble breathing. I uttered the words, "You've grown up," with great difficulty. However, this was incorrect. My entire world was turned upside down as Kevin gently caressed me after taking his hands off the counter. A dormant volcano within me erupted again as I felt his warmth. Perhaps it was an error, he remarked, that recognizable grin on his lips. Although it was an error, it was more than that. You are aware of it. Everything I had within me evaporated at that instant. Everything about Kevin's words and touch drew me back into the past's forbidden secrets, even though I knew it was wrong. That night, dinner continued as any other typical family supper. While Bob went on about his job, Kevin would interject every so often to fill us in on his day. That apart, I was lost in thought. I couldn't stop thinking about what Kevin had said earlier in the kitchen. He seemed to be staring at me, and I couldn't tear my eyes away from my food. After supper, Bob went into the living room to watch TV and relax. As I continued to clean up the table in the kitchen, Kevin materialized right next to me. Despite his lack of speech, he captivated me by just being there. Bringing a plate to the sink, he drew nearer to me. As he spoke, his voice remained low and steady. He called me Mary, and I felt a shudder go through my body at the mention of my name. I will be at the cabin in the mountains that I mentioned to you earlier tomorrow night. Like in the past, Bob is going out with his friends and won't return until late. Come on over at 9 o'clock. I'll be waiting. The weight of his remarks lingered. Words refused to come out of my mouth no matter how much I tried. Kevin hesitated for a second, his countenance nearly triumphant, before he turned and made his way to his room. My heart was racing as I stood there and watched him go. I wished I could ignore his words and act as if tomorrow night didn't exist, but I was too familiar with my own character to succeed. The following night, a struggle was taking place within me. My feet appeared to be leading me down a road I was trying to avoid as 9 o'clock drew near. At home, I put on a warm coat and a dress that was both basic and attractive. I kept telling myself, "Don't go," with each step. However, a different voice within me was more persuasive. I got to the cabin just as the snow began to fall. Approaching the door, I shivered a little. Looking out the window, I could make out the cozy light of the fireplace's crackling fire. Kevin was quick to open the door when I knocked. His face beamed with that self-assured grin. "I knew it, Mary," he whispered with a rich, quiet voice. As I removed my coat, he moved to make room for me to enter. After that, he placed a tender hand on my back and led me to the hearth. As the snowstorm intensified outside, the crackling fire within cultivated an intimate and comforting ambience. Kevin took a seat beside me, staring intently into my eyes the whole time. There was a palpable air of tension in the long pause that separated us. No words were required. After what felt like an eternity, He finally drew near enough to lay his palm gently on my neck. My heart raced as his comforting presence enveloped me. "Mary," he whispered, fixing his intense gaze on me. "Because of you, I have greatly missed you." The whole thing was authentic. "If I could spend even one night with you, I would. I thought you were aware of that." His remark swept over me. It wasn't merely shame or terror that made my heart race. Kevin had rekindled some dormant emotion inside of me. His delicate touch along my neck elicited a response from every fiber of my existence. Everything changed the second Kevin raised his hands from the counter to touch me. His gentle caress broke down whatever barriers I had built up. I knew I couldn't hide my emotions any longer when his intensely determined eyes met mine. I whispered to Kevin, my voice quivering. Exactly what I intended to say eluded me. I was engulfed by his touch. His gaze, the warmth of his fingers on my neck. His gentle touch dismantled every barrier I had erected throughout my life. In a flash, the situation became out of hand. The last thing holding me down was broken by the warmth of Kevin's palm on my neck. I lowered my head slightly as our gazes connected, knowing it was too late to do anything about the overwhelming emotion. Our lips met in an instant. The intensity and passion of his kiss blocked out all the thoughts flying through my head. There was no turning back now, and the voices of reason inside me were drowning out one by one. After our lips parted, he drew a long breath. I felt a chill run down my spine as I watched the intensity in his eyes and the quiver in his voice. "I am at my breaking point, Mary." I reached up and gently put his other hand on my waist instead of fighting. The room was electric with expectation, and our breathing accelerated in sync. Forget about passing time. This was the liberation of pent-up feelings that had been building up for years. Standing in perfect lockstep, we were being guided to a place we had no say in deciding to go. There was an unbreakable magnetic pull between us, and his powerful hands gripped my waist tightly as we moved in harmony. A combination of resolve and longing pervaded the room as we made our way into the bedroom. As Kevin hurriedly shut the door behind us, I allowed myself be fully consumed by the reality of the situation. As I delicately lowered the dress straps, my hands slid to my shoulders. My pulse was racing as the fabric gently dropped to the floor, gathering about my feet. What really got to me was the intense desire and awe that I saw in Kevin's eyes. "Mary, I knew this was going to happen," he murmured, his voice gentle but undeniably heavy. "This is a moment I knew I would have to share with you." In that instant, our differences vanished. This emotional moment had been building for years, and there were only the two of us in this room. As Kevin removed his shirt and tossed it upon my discarded garment, his gaze remained fixed on me the whole time. Just as his pants fell to the ground, so did his pants. We were both overcome with emotions, and the atmosphere between us was electric. I gathered the bravery to approach Kevin and ask, "Did you come here for me?" My breath seized as I took a step closer. Even before he spoke a word, his smile conveyed all. Once again he leaned forward and met my gaze. Even though his voice was steady and emotional, he assured Mary that this moment was reserved just for her. My heart melted at the sight of his self-assurance as he collapsed onto the bed. There was absolutely no space for doubt or uncertainty. I mustered all the bravery I could muster and admitted it after taking a long breath. "This is the moment I've always imagined, I'll admit. Kevin, come over here. There is no more time for me." Kevin leaned over me on the bed after studying my face, picking up on my every nonverbal cue. After our lips locked again, he drew me closer by encircling my waist with his hands. All of the obstacles that had been standing in our way vanished. His passionate kisses escalated as his hands explored my body, setting off a chain reaction of sensual sensations. A strong reaction overwhelmed me, and my body froze in response. I drew him nearer as my hands went limp on his back. I let myself be swept away by the enchantment of the moment. I clutched to Kevin firmly as my body responded to every touch, feeling waves of warmth radiating from his breath on my neck. Everything seemed to come to a halt. The intensity of the moment was so great, and there was only the two of us. With what seemed like a marathon under his belt, Kevin dropped next to me, his breathing labored. His expression was one of contentment and profound contemplation. He wasn't staring at the ceiling but at me. I embraced him tightly, my heart racing, and smiled softly at him. I whispered that being here felt simpler this time. But I also no longer see this area as merely a location. Now I'm sure I'll never forget it. Nothing will ever be the same. With a little smile teasing his lips, Kevin shifted his attention to me. Then I should be grateful to you, Mary, for making it memorable, he remarked, his voice filled with warmth. But Mary, this spot will be more than a recollection from now on. I've decided to make this town my permanent home. Going forward, everything will change. By the end, the past will have vanished. I was taken aback by his remarks and found myself staring into his eyes as I attempted to absorb their impact. Simultaneously, I felt a surge of both anticipation and fear. I was both excited and afraid by the prospect of Kevin remaining in town. Suppose Bob discovered it? What if all the secrets we had meticulously concealed were revealed? These ideas kept circling in my head. Kevin, my voice quivered as I paused. Are you certain? Our town, our relationship, it's all really intricate. My words slipped out as Kevin extended his hand and tenderly squeezed mine. Bob. Mary, he whispered forcefully but sweetly, I returned to see you. I can't help but be drawn in now. Time flies. Plus, being in your company is priceless. I felt chills at the sound of his words. No matter how hard I tried, I couldn't hide the intensity of my feelings for him. Still, I felt a need to distance myself. Just for the time being. My dress was lying on the floor, and our gazes locked again as I lifted it. We both understood in that awkward silence that this was just the beginning. I had to depart that night, though. I hurried to the kitchen as soon as I stepped foot inside the house to pour a glass of water for myself. With every drink, I hoped to soothe the tempest brewing within. I could still hear Kevin's voice in my head. Everything is changing. The past isn't going anywhere. A mix of anticipation and dread welled up within of me as I heard those words. As I felt my heart pounding rapidly, I dropped into my bed and rested my hand on my chest. Why am I experiencing this? Please tell me what I'm doing. What gives me the willies? I murmured into the night. As I stared up at the ceiling, the idea of Kevin relocating to this town crossed my mind. He may have. Assuming all that was shown. Bob, where are you? What am I going to do about the utter turmoil and overwhelming desire that is raging inside of me? I fell into a tumultuous slumber as my mind weighed heavily on me. Still, I had a feeling this was just the beginning. There was a rippling effect that would eventually become a storm because of Kevin's homecoming. I was also unsure about my ability to endure it. Things are only going to get more intricate and dramatic in the upcoming parts of this novel. Please remain tuned for future installments if you found this story enjoyable. This is just the beginning. The most exciting parts are yet to come. You must have found great meaning in this narrative if you have come this far. You won't want to miss a single detail since there's a lot more to tell. Please let us know what you think of this story by following the story, turning on alerts, and leaving a comment.